You're probably wondering what this is. To ancient Babylon, this wasn't a monster. It was a spiritual being sent to guide humanity. They were almost like Babylon's version of angels. Almost. But the Bible saw something different, something disturbing. This strange fish figure connects directly to one of the Bible's weirdest mysteries, a moment almost nobody talks about. In Genesis 6, the Bible describes a time before the flood, when angels came down to earth and had children with human women, producing giants called the Nephilim. And the next thing you know, God sends a flood to reset the entire human race. That is not a coincidence. So why is this bizarre passage in the Bible at all? Well, scholars now believe it was written as a warning, and it was written because of beings like this. Now, ancient people probably didn't believe there were actual fish people running around. The fish imagery likely symbolized where they were said to have been born, in the cosmic waters. But the human race really was in deep trouble, and there is still a danger today, and it has something to do with this story. A quick disclaimer, the following Apkallu story is not scripture, but I can promise you it's going to give you background info that will unlock hidden layers of Genesis. Meet the Apkallu, ancient Babylon's greatest heroes. They were 7 sages that were said to have been sent from the gods to teach humanity wisdom and help civilize them before the flood. Ancient stories said they taught us stuff like magic, medicine, architecture, writing. In art, they look like this, part fish, part human, hybrid beings. And later, men wearing fish cloaks. While you and I would probably picture angels doing God's work on earth, Babylonians pictured these guys doing their God's work on earth. And no one feared them. At least not at first. According to Babylon, the Apkallu were here to help civilization along. You can see how they were supposed to help us in a scene from a recent Marvel superhero movie, Eternals, who are almost certainly based on the Apkallu. Here, they're even living in Babylon. Marvel scrapped the part about looking like fish, but I guess they didn't think a movie about fish people would be very marketable. But in this scene, Babylon's angel figures are doing their job, debating the best way to help humans along.
Humanity may be coming along slower than some of us want.
Until something went terribly, terribly wrong. This is Phastos. He's specifically in charge of teaching humans advanced technology. He wants to show ancient people how to build the steam engine to help them till their fields faster. But the other Eternals argue that humans are not ready for this yet.
It's gonna freak them out.
I mean, they only have had the wheel 1,000 years, so.
This steam
engine. It's a steam
it's too
engine.
soon.
Civilization just isn't ready. So they don't give the steam engine to Babylon. But later something disastrous happens, both in the movie and in the Apkallu story. Despite holding back the steam engine until later, the technology they taught humans still gets used in a way they didn't intend. A scene shows Phastos in 1945 staring at the damage done by a nuclear bomb dropped on Hiroshima during World War II. Phastos is in tears as he tells Ajax that the Hiroshima bombing was his fault.
I did this. If my technology hadn't helped them advance, they're not worth saving.
The Apkallu were also said to have dangerous knowledge that had the potential to cause us to destroy ourselves. And like this scene from the Eternals, something terrible would happen that would cause public opinion to turn on the Apkallu. They'd go from being seen as heroes to being seen as evil and villainous. So what in the world would cause perception to change? Well, it wasn't the atom bomb, it was the flood. It's almost as if somebody hit the reset button on the human race. Coincidence? What I'm about to tell you suggests otherwise. There's actually a gap in the Apkallu story around this time, but if we line up a couple other stories here, it'll unlock something incredible. On the left we have the Apkallu story. The 7 sages are teaching humans, but there's a gap in that we don't know exactly what the Apkallu did wrong. The flood resets the human race, and the Apkallu are imprisoned. So let's compare the biblical flood story starting in Genesis 6. Here, angels are tampering with humans. There's giants. Humans have become excessively violent. The flood again resets the human race. And then, angels responsible are imprisoned. So what's new here? Well, whatever the spiritual beings did made humans violent and evil. Now get ready for a serious eye-opener. Look at the comparison to the Book of Enoch. Angels teach humans forbidden knowledge. Humans become violent and corrupt. The flood hits the reset button, the angels responsible are imprisoned. Isn't it interesting that in Enoch, the evil angels taught us the exact same dangerous knowledge as the Apkallu? But all three of these stories have something in common. Spiritual beings caused the flood. They guided us in the direction that accelerated our own self-destructive tendencies. And it almost caused our extinction. If you think about it, the flood kind of bailed us out. It allowed the human race to continue. But the spirits who taught us all that dangerous stuff, they're locked away in prison somewhere, right? No more threat? Not so fast. Danger is still looming. Something very disturbing happened that caused the author of Genesis to pick up the pen and write Genesis 6, 1-4. The knowledge that corrupted us before the flood, it didn't stay dead. It was coming back. And Babylon claimed to have had it. In their mythology, the god Marduk restructured things, imprisoning the original 7 Apkallu and putting 4 new Apkallu in place, called the Umanu. But they were different. They weren't divine. They were just humans who wore fish cloaks. They would be the new keepers of divine knowledge given to them by their gods. Babylon's scribes claimed to descend from these Apkallu. The biblical authors would already be on high alert. It's like Babylon forgot what caused the flood in the first place. And here they were doing the exact same thing that almost got us all killed, looking for knowledge from the other side. So the writer of Genesis 6 is thinking, do you guys want to die? Do you want to see another flood? I know God said he wouldn't send another flood again, but fire is still an option, or an ice age. Or maybe like a 10,000 mile wide lightning bolt? But the biggest threat was that 4th Apkallu. There was something really odd about him. According to Dr. Michael Heiser's book Reversing Hermon, the 4th Apkallu was said to be 2/3 divine and 1/3 human. So here's a shocker. How could a person be part human and part divine? Well, at some point, the original Apkallu would have had to mate with a human. That dangerous knowledge from before the flood, it was said to have survived through the 4th Apkallu. Great, right? The existential threat returned, and here's Babylon walking right into the trap. Maybe you're putting the pieces together now. Why is Genesis 6, 1-4 talking about angels mating with humans and giants? The writer of the Bible is firing a shot right at Babylon, saying, hey, did you forget what caused the flood? These spirits you call Apkallu, well, they're kind of like fallen angels, and they're not your friend. Stay away from them. But why then does he go on to mention the Nephilim? Dr. Michael Heiser makes another mind-blowing connection in Reversing Hermon. One other character from ancient stories was mentioned as being 2/3 divine and 1/3 human. And the crazy thing is, you probably already know what his name is. It was Gilgamesh, the ancient king. And here's another shocker. Scholar Amar Anus spells out the threat in his paper. He wrote, Gilgamesh was remotely related to antediluvian Apkallu, as he brought back a message from the antediluvian age. That just means that he carried a message from before the flood. In Jewish terms, he was like one of the giant Nephilim, as exactly the Book of Giants depicts him. There is new supporting cuneiform evidence that Gilgamesh was thought of as having a gigantic stature, his height being 11 cubits. There you go. Gilgamesh was said to be taller than the biblical giant Goliath. Historically, Gilgamesh had something else in common with the giants called Nephilim too, an excessive taste for blood and violence. There are some pretty stunning parallels between these stories. Genesis 6:4 specifically tells us that there were giants on the earth before and after the flood, and Gilgamesh would fit right into that category. So what's all this mean? Honestly, I don't know what to make of some of the parallels, so you let me know what you think in the comments. But I do know this. Genesis 6:1-4 was written to warn everyone. Don't forget what caused the flood. Making contact with spiritual beings other than God. We seem to be really bad at discerning whether or not spiritual beings are here to help us or hurt us. So it's best not to seek them out. This passage is your standard warning against worshiping other gods, angels, or even raising a king to godlike status, like Gilgamesh. Stuff like this led directly to the flood. While the writer of Genesis is speaking to people familiar with the Apkallu story, he would not have endorsed it. This is a critique. He would agree on these three things though. Spiritual beings corrupted us before the flood, the threat of the giants, and the imprisonment of the angels responsible. But beyond that, it's somewhat of a mystery. Personally, I don't know what to think of the Apkallu. Were there real spirits behind them? I don't know. Were there rebel angels behind them? Maybe. All I know is there's a warning in Genesis 6, and I'm cautious to take too much else from the Apkallu story. One thing we know for sure is Babylon was playing with fire. But what about that other version of the story from the book of Enoch? Do you want to know about the 200 angels who made a pact to destroy us all? Watch this video next.